Hello everyone, I am Pranay Kotasthane. I am Deputy Director at the Takshashila Institution, and we are having this conversation on the sidelines of the Takshashila Network for Advanced Studies 2026 conference. And I have with me Dr. Aparna Pande here. Dr. Pande is Senior Fellow at the Hudson Institute and one of the foremost scholars on Pakistan in the world. And Dr. Pande's work has included a book on explaining Pakistan's foreign policy, and most recently, she has edited the second edition of the Rutledge handbook of contemporary Pakistan. So we are having this conversation on Feb 28th. Lots of things happening on with Pakistan even as we speak. So we are going to have a conversation on Pakistan's foreign policy behavior and how it has changed over the last few years. So I want to begin, Aparna, with this question because in India, as you know better than anyone else, there are a lot of misconceptions about Pakistan and its behavior. So what are the few things, as a scholar who has looked at Pakistan for 20 years, what are some things that people generally get wrong about the politics and geopolitics of Pakistan?
Thanks, Pranay. Pleasure to be with you and at this conference. I think three things. One, that because Pakistan is part of the same subcontinent, the same 5,000-year-old culture, Pakistan is just like us. You know, sort of, we understand, because we are the same culture, we understand Pakistan, and we'd be able to predict how they will behave. I think that's a misconception because it's last 79 years, it's been a different country, and sort of the domestic politics, certain institutions have framed how the state acts, and so it's different from India.
Yeah.
Second, because India has had civilian supremacy, Indians do not understand what a state which has a military dominance for 79 years behaves and acts like. They presume it will be, a dictator. They don't understand the the deep presence of the Pakistani military, especially the army, in every aspect of Pakistani society, culture, politics. That's the second part. And third, I would say, there's this presumption that because Pakistan is much smaller than India, population-wise, economy, Pakistan is, is just a junior neighbor. So it's like Nepal or Sri Lanka. It isn't. It's much bigger than them, and yes, it's much smaller than India, but that doesn't change Pakistan's relevance and importance to certain countries and Pakistan's ability to use that. And so I believe these are some of the topics that Indians by and large get wrong. Sorry, one more point. This belief that Pakistan that Pakistanis across the board have the same view. Yes, and it's interesting because just as Indians across the board don't have the same view, Pakistan, depending on which province you live in, and what your relationship with the Pakistani state is, your perception of the Pakistani state and of India is very different.
Right. No, that's fascinating. And the first point, especially which you made, is the distinguishing feature, right? Because we think of Pakistan from a domestic lens, and we always think that we know how they will act. But time and again, we know that we need to look at it from the lens of another geopolitical actor who happens to be in our neighborhood and share some commonalities. But finally, it's a different actor. And as you said, it's been now 70, 80 years.
Yeah.
So that's a long arc for nation states who have different destinies and imaginations of themselves. So let's go to the book. Now, you've recently edited this mammoth volume, which has quite a few 30-40 chapters on people from across the world. By the way, great job in getting all those people together to write something, and that's like a reference material for anyone trying to understand Pakistan, right? And this is the second edition that you have brought out. The last edition was around 7-8 years ago.
Yeah, 2018.
2018, right? So 8 years ago. So what has changed from 2018 to 2026? What have your priors been updated when you look at these two volumes?
So this book was the original conception was that there are not many reference textbooks on Pakistan. And sort of this would fill a niche, and in many levels it has. Rutledge actually came back to me and told me that they've managed to sell so many copies of the first edition that they actually wanted to bring out a second one. Secondly, the aim was to have chapters and to cover topics as extensively as possible. So there's a chapter on cricket, a chapter on Pakistani literature in English. I wanted one on films, I wasn't able to get that. But it covers, the foundational, foundation and identity of Pakistan, Pakistan's political institutions, including the judiciary, political parties, Islam and Islamization, education, gender, climate, obviously terrorism, the military, the chapter that you and Nitin have written, and then foreign policy and sort of all the key relationships possible: China, US, India, Afghanistan, Iran, and the Gulf states. So the difference between the two editions is, and obviously economics. So I have a lot more chapters on Pakistan's economy, and I have many more chapters on Pakistan's foreign policy, like the Gulf states. But I also have some interesting chapters on Pakistan's identity and like nationalism and how do Pakistanis view themselves. And so the aim was to add chapters in any of these areas that I could, and find sort of, if possible, to some extent, I was trying to find more Pakistani scholars, whether they were based in Pakistan or outside, but also from other countries. And it sort of, I would have liked a few more, but I think this edition has more diversity of views, and it has more areas that are covered, like climate is covered in this.
I think, that's become even more relevant with the floods, etc.
And so sort of and then I have a sort of, a few extra chapters on Pakistan's banking, economy, economic changes. So sort of some additions to the first edition, some additional chapters, and I think it's come out quite well.
Yeah. So it's like taking a holistic view again, not just from a securitized perspective of Pakistan as well. Now let's come to the foreign policy angle, because sitting here, one lens which has become clear over the last 6 months is that Field Marshal Asim Munir has been able to sort of balance China, and is also trying to make connections in the Trump administration. They have made interesting things on crypto. So it's trying to position themselves as this swing state. So is Pakistan a swing state? Is it trying to be one? And how is it being able to balance both China and the US?
So Pakistan has always wanted to balance the great powers of the day. Sort of if we go back to 1947, as a country which lagged economic resources, that military resources, and wasn't even known in the world, unlike India, it needed to create that identity and have a superpower or great power ally. And at that time, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, in an interview to Margaret Bourke-White, Life magazine, said that because of the Cold War, and the Russians are not far away from Pakistan, the United States will need us. And so the US will need us more than we need them, but they will build our economy and our military. And so that throughout the Cold War, what Pakistan was able to do is use its location to appeal to the great power or powers of the day, that we have this location, we also have a military. What is it that we can do for you? You want us to join, CENTO, we join CENTO. You want us to join SEATO, Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, when we're not even a Southeast Asian country, we will join SEATO. You would like troops for Vietnam and Laos, we will promise you but not deliver. You would like the anti-Soviet Afghan jihad, you want territory, you can use mine. When it comes to the war against terrorism, you need to attack Afghanistan and eliminate Al-Qaeda, use my territory but pay me for it. And then we come to Field Marshal Asim Munir. When the Trump administration came in, Around that time, Pakistan sort of presented to the incoming administration that, we can once again become your your partner and your friend, and how about we help you with Iran mediation, or if you need to use our territory and our air space. You want for the Gaza's International Stabilization Force, the Board of Peace. You can use us either as humans or our troops or our territory. When it comes to China, it has been slightly easier. So the aim was, the aim is always that the global power of the day builds Pakistan's resources. In return, Pakistan gives them something. The case of China, China has always wanted, sort of an entrance into the South Asian or the Indian subcontinent. And from China's point of view, Pakistan is to China what North Korea is to China, a secondary deterrent. One keeps Japan and South Korea at bay, one keeps India tied down.
Right.
And so it played beautifully into each other's, sort of hopes and desires. But Pakistan is able to do this because of that fundamental belief that we need external support, and we need to offer that great power of the day whatever they would like. And one of the things we offer them, they will accept. And we have no qualms in offering crypto, even though we don't have electricity 24/7. Critical minerals, the same Recode egg mine, which was offered to Tethian and Chinese. Sort of the possibility of maybe oil off the coast, and counter-terrorism, Iran. But it's the same playbook. It's the same table. We're just offering it to in a different way.
I was thinking of it like a classic rentier state, right? So
Yes.
I will rent my land to China because Gwadar can go. I can rent my nuclear weapons to Saudi Arabia, and I can rent my critical minerals to US. So whoever you are, I have something to offer, and it can continue. Of course, there are huge social consequences of all this, but because of the military acting the way it is, it can override many of those concerns. But I am fascinated that last year when we had this conference, there was this the May protests had happened. Imran Khan, there was a lot of protests against the military, something that I hadn't seen since I started tracking Pakistan. And there seemed to be a legitimacy crisis against the Pakistani military. But 1 year later, there doesn't seem to be a military crisis, right? So I often feel that we think states are more fragile than they actually are, and Pakistan might be like this table which, if it were jittery, it might be jittery and you might think that it might fall down, but it doesn't fall down. It still holds onto it together, So we had that kind of a table which was a bit jittery, and we used to call it Pakistan. But so is that so? Like, do we overestimate fragility of the Pakistani state and Pakistan's military's legitimacy as well?
Yes, to some extent. I remember when the India-Pakistan clashes happened last year. On the very first day, I was on a panel on Doordarshan, and sort of two other commentators insisted that a coup was going to happen, and General Asim Munir, he was general then, is going to be overthrown. And I said there's nothing of the sort. But I do believe that, sort of social media makes us, increase the magnitude by like 1000%. Because there are, hundreds of accounts talking about this is happening, that is happening. We believe it is, that it is more fragile. But second, the PTI does have a massive social media presence. They have managed to use that. And they use it very well to make it appear that Pakistan is in more crisis than it is. And because at the end of the day, there are people outside the country, and so many in India, who believe that a Pakistan in crisis is good, or the Pakistani military in crisis is good. It just reinforces what people believe. But the Pakistan army does have control. General Asim Munir did have a legitimacy problem because, he had to face the PTI, Imran Khan. He didn't really have, any legitimacy outside. But as Stalin said of the Pope, how many battalions does he have? Munir did have the army under control. The sort of the turnaround, however, happened because of the India-Pakistan war. Sort of Pakistan won the narrative. And as long as Pakistan doesn't lose, Pakistan wins any conflict.
Right. Yeah. So even though operationally, strategically, India would have won, at least domestically, Pakistan military has been able to portray
And the
itself.
conflict helped the Pakistan military rally everybody to Pakistan, right? Because it was seen as India attacking and India India trying to destroy Pakistan. So sort of most Pakistanis rallied to their state and to their army.
Right.
And that built his legitimacy on those grounds he was given the field marshal position. So sort of the turnaround came, and once that happened, the PTI could not complain against him because it would be seen as complaining against somebody who has defended Pakistan. So the PTI's ability to push back has been limited because of the rise in his popularity and his legitimacy and the army's legitimacy. So their ability to have protests is very limited now, and so all we see are social media accounts. But he is stronger today. He was stronger in May than he was in March or even April.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating. Now coming to one area where actually it seems that things are going awry for Pakistan, the Afghanistan equation, right? The entire lens that Pakistan had was this idea that a friendly regime in Kabul will be good for us, etc. And they cultivated all these terrorists, Afghanistan, Taliban people in Quetta and other places. And now the Taliban is really different once it has reached Kabul. And now I see people in the Pakistan social media and newspapers saying, see, these Taliban people are now talking to India and we are the ones who are now defending. Why are these people talking to a regime which doesn't allow women to study and things like that, when it was exactly what the Pakistan was supporting for 2 decades or so. So where did they get things wrong, and what is their strategy here, you think?
So in 2010 or 2011, the then US Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, made a remark: you can't keep snakes in your backyard and expect them to only bite your neighbors. So the Pakistani army has had a policy going back to actually soon after independence of using proxies or non-state actors, whether tribals, Islamist groups, for regional foreign policy purposes, both India and Afghanistan. And they continue to do that. They believed that they can, but they have believed that they can turn on a tap and they can turn off the tap whenever they feel like it. And they can control these groups. But at the same time, they wanted plausible deniability. And so sort of the support for the Taliban goes back decades. And the belief was that if the Taliban if a Pashtun Islamist government came to power in Afghanistan, it would be pro-Pakistan because Islamist Pashtuns will be pro-Pakistan and nationalist Pashtuns will be anti-Pakistan. And these Islamist Pashtuns will be anti-India as well. What they forgot was that at the end of the day, if you are sitting in Kabul, any interference by Pakistan is a problem, and Delhi is a good balancer for you. Secondly, they supported an ideological regime, both Taliban 1.0 and 2.0, for whom its ideology matters more than anything else. I believe sort of the reports are that Akhundzada has been killed in the strike. We will wait to see what happens, the head of the Taliban currently. But he is someone who sent his son to be a suicide bomber. If you can have your own child killed, then you do believe in that ideology. And so the Pakistani militaries believe that having groups which are so ideological, that they will be pragmatic enough once they get power and they will listen to Pakistan, was flawed. Third, all that Pakistan's desire is that any Afghan regime should accept the Durand line. No Afghan regime will accept the Durand line. They would like Afghan regimes to be totally dependent on Pakistan. No Afghan regime will do that. Doesn't matter what the ideology is. And they also want every Afghan regime to not have a relationship with any other country, especially India. Again, no Afghan regime has done that. So all of this is against history and against what has happened in the past. Just because you change the character doesn't change how Afghans look at Pakistan. Finally, ideology matters and the Taliban are unwilling to stop the TTP, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, from attacking Pakistan. Again, for them, the TTP are part of this one Taliban, Afghan or Pakistan. They are not going to stop them. And fighting an insurgency is an insurgency which is now a government but which doesn't need legitimacy and is not accountable to its people. So you can kill Afghans, the Taliban will strike, but what strategy do you have against the Afghan Taliban? Yeah. So what is their strategy? Their strategy is what's often called whack-a-mole. You strike me, I will strike you back. Because what option does Pakistan have? Can they disown the Taliban? I mean, they can call them names, but are they going to overthrow the Taliban? No, because that would mean admitting that their policy was wrong. They can support IS, the Islamic State, Khorasan province, to destabilize the Taliban. They can support other smaller groups to destabilize Afghanistan. But at the end of the day, they would like Afghanistan to stay pro-Pakistan. And so there's an inherent limitation to the extent to which Pakistan can bomb Afghanistan and expect the Taliban to give in to Pakistani demands.
Yeah. In a sense, the analogy is, one of the statements I attributed to Field Marshal Munir was that he said Pakistan is like a dumper truck and India is like a Ferrari or something like that. Mercedes. The same thing applies to Afghanistan and Pakistan. Absolutely. The Afghanistan people can say we are the dumper truck to your Maruti Mehran or whatever car, absolutely. Suzuki Mehran that they have.
And the Afghan Taliban doesn't believe it's accountable, right? If you recall, when they took over and people complained about lack of food, they said, well, complain to God. Because we are divinely ordained. So we are not accountable to you. We are not running elections. Yeah. You didn't elect us and you can't throw us out.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So now coming to this China question, the hope with CPEC, which was, one of the shining projects of BRI, or at least a flagship project, doesn't seem to have borne a lot of fruit for either China or Pakistan. So within Pakistan, isn't that being noticed that, what is their economic growth story? Fine, I mean, you can play the rentier state game, they are good at it, they have played it for a long time. But Pakistan was the original Asian tiger, right? Ayub Khan's time, the fastest growing economy in Asia. It's no longer even considered in that race. And a lot of the elites must be asking this question, isn't it? Like, what is our growth story? We wanted CPEC to change our fortunes. It hasn't done so. Are you seeing more of those conversations happening or no?
Yes, to some extent. There are conversations. Pakistani economists talk about how this is not changing, that CPEC hasn't made a difference, the rentier economy. But there's a bigger and a larger question here, right? I mean, one can call out CPEC, like all the BRI projects, and say it is a hub and spokes model. It benefits China, puts the countries in debt. Happens across the board. Yeah. But in this case, and maybe in others, some fault lies with Pakistan, right? CPEC, what was CPEC? What were the main CPEC projects? They were physical infrastructure, energy infrastructure, and some social projects. Physical infrastructure like road and rail. Now, rail is expensive, right? And so the rail construction has not happened even though Pakistan wants it. CPEC has done a lot of road, highways, from, across, because that is cheaper for the Chinese and easier. So there's frustration on the Pakistani side that the rail projects haven't come about. Chinese prefer to use it for road because then they can move their products as well. Energy infrastructure. China has faced the same thing that in the 1990s the World Bank faced, which is Pakistan has a massive energy crisis. The World Bank in the 1990s sort of brought in energy power company which were willing to help Pakistan resolve the issue, but successive Pakistani governments cancelled the contracts. And the second part is, it's called a circular debt, right? So the utility company produces power, it sells it to someone, whether it's a commercial or a private individual. They have to get paid, right?
Yeah.
If you don't get paid, you don't produce, you can't sell, you don't get paid. Pakistan has that problem.
Yeah, I mean, we also have that discoms problem, but Pakistan's problem is at another
And
higher
so,
scale.
sort of nobody wants to go in and invest.
Yeah.
So CPEC was supposed to do, and they set up some, but they're not doing more because Chinese companies face the same problem. So the energy infrastructure has not changed.
I heard something on the solar side.
So solar side has grown. Solar side also because there are not many, the distribution and the circular debt part comes is much less. Now Pakistan's hope was that CPEC alone would boost Pakistan's economic growth. Chinese expected that because it was China, sort of Pakistan would undertake the economic reforms. For that, the military will need to back off. And the military is unwilling to allow any Pakistani, government to actually implement economic reforms which will take control away from the military and from the state and actually give it to private companies. The via media they have found is that they are willing to sell some of the state-owned enterprises to, whether it's an Emirati company or a Saudi company, Pakistan Steel Mills, PIA, and things like that. But as a one-off, privatization. But they are not willing to open the economy, and without that, CPEC can only, result in some changes. It can't change and help Pakistan's economy to grow.
Yeah.
It is still a cotton-producing, textile exporting economy that hasn't changed in 79 years. But it could have changed, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
Now, the final issue is that CPEC also facing security problems. There were 15,000 CPEC force, primarily manned by former Pakistani law enforcement officials and paid for now by Pakistan, not by China. But that doesn't stop the TTP and the Baloch BLA from attacking those projects.
Right.
And the Pakistani military is unable to stop that because it interferes with their regional policies.
Yeah.
And so the Chinese have, I think it's about 30 billion that they've invested out of 65, and they're not investing more. Now Pakistan has used that to draw in the Saudis, draw in, the Emiratis and others to try and balance the amount of money coming in from different sources and reduce their debt. But the extent, and the Saudis may do it because of their defense agreement. The Emiratis have also announced money. And the US has through Exim Bank in Recoding. But I don't think any of this is going to change Pakistan's economy, because Pakistan undertakes economic reforms when Pakistan faces an economic crisis. When Pakistan believes it is being wooed by the world, it does not undertake any economic reforms.
Right. Interesting. And I mean, when they're talking about critical minerals also, I mean, imagine trying to do critical minerals in Balochistan or in other areas. All these things will exist.
Yeah. And so the Recoding, that mine.
Yes.
That copper mine was offered about a decade plus ago to an Argentinian-Brazilian conglomerate called Tethian. They signed the contract in 2010 or 2011. The Pakistan Supreme Court cancelled that contract. They took Pakistan to court. They won it at that World Bank ICSID, the International Court for Arbitration, which is based in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And Pakistan owes Tethian about $10 to $12 billion.
Oh, okay.
The same mine they offered the Chinese, the same mine they've offered the US.
Yeah. Amazing. So double renting,
Yes.
sub-renting and renting. They have
Yeah.
moved beyond renting. My last question, Aparna, a quick answer for this one. What should be the modus vivendi that India should have with respect to Pakistan? I know the question is really big and expensive, but what is it that you would want to say happen between India and Pakistan in the next 1 year?
The next 1 year. I guess sort of, I I would like sort of in the Indian side to understand that at the sort of or accept or try to move forward on the fact that isolating, ignoring, and not talking to Pakistan, talking to your neighbor does not work. So you do need to find some ways, whether it is a back channel, civilian, a track 2 or track 1.5, some way to start a conversation. Sort of, I don't know whether in a year which has elections, the top leadership is going to, actually have a conversation with any Pakistani leader, which
Yeah.
would be the ideal because.
But that might lead to response from the Pakistani military jihadi complex again. So better not to do the
Yeah.
high level
Yeah, and
summits
so
which you've
sort of,
done.
some kind of back channel to
Yeah.
restart, and the Pakistani side to also understand and realize that at the end of the day, they need to have a conversation, and just because they feel they are once again in the global limelight doesn't mean that they can, sort of that they ignore. But I don't know if it will happen. I mean, back channel may be possible because of the world we live in,
Yeah.
and it can stay under the radar. But I mean, ideally speaking, I think the best thing for India and Pakistan would be if the two countries have if India has a working but a non-hostile relationship. That would be the best one can hope for in the short term. In the long term, sort of, I do believe that if you have a 5,000 years of shared culture and 79 years of a different country, you sort of, history says that you will have to have a relationship with the other country. When that will happen, I don't know.
Great. Thanks so much. This was a wonderful conversation, and there are so many more themes to be explored, and that's why the latest handbook is a great way for people to learn about Pakistan and the various facets of it, and to understand it as a geopolitical actor separate from India and see what its motivations, strengths, and weaknesses are. Thank you so much, Aparna, for doing this. We'll end this conversation here. Thank you.
Thank you.